caught in their lies, I can't help but be kind of amused by it. Because nobody's amused about bad Obamacare healthcare stories. Nobody's amused about people suffering with bad insurance. In fact, there's a friend of mine who happens to be on this show today who is suffering because of crappy Obamacare. So no, I don't find Obamacare amusing at all. But we have to kind of laugh at it. I don't find Gruber amusing, but he's such a pompous, glib jerk. You have to kind of mock him.
One thing that's interesting about the Gruber stuff, though, I've been doing the carpool thing in the morning now, and so I have lots of time in the car, and I don't typically listen to radio. I haven't for years, but
it's the thing to do in the morning rush hour.
I guess, but it's always on National Public Radio in the car when we're on the way into work and back. And I've been listening for the past week to NPR coverage. They have been covering Gruber. It was very interesting.
They have.
And they have been playing the quotes, and they have been talking about that. Now they're trying to set that up in a way of sort of balancing it out with what he's talking about in the hearings, but it's getting coverage. People are hearing that, and that's something that wasn't happening when this originally broke. And they acknowledged that. They said it was only after the videos went really viral on the internet and kept coming that much more attention was paid to that. So I just thought it would be an interesting update to know that NPR is actually on Gruber, and extensively so.
And that's what we're seeing. In order to get liberal media to pay attention to some of the things that they want to just sweep under the rug, we have to keep hammering it. And that was the case with Gruber. And you have to have catchy video, and you have to have a hook. It worked that way with video with Gruber, and it finally worked with the Lena Dunham case, and it finally worked with the UVA rape case, because enough of a to-do was made from, I don't know, conservative media, or I don't know if you really can call it that, alternate media, that is mostly conservative people looking at the stories that liberal media doesn't want to look at, and they are eventually forced to come to these stories late, because if they did cover them earlier, they would have been mentioning it and then dismissing it, because they're trying to make it be something that you can dismiss. And then when they discover, oh, actually, no, the audience isn't dismissing this, we need to cover it. And so then they end up flailing. And it's kind of interesting.
I think that in addition to that, I think that you posted today about what Ace of Spades said about the Gruber hearings, and something that needs to be pointed at a billion times, because I'm sure there are going to be many a Mediaite article coming out soon that say Democrats lambast Gruber, Democrats destroy Gruber in hearing, when that's not what they were doing. It was the way that it was set up, so that they were attacking his lies, the idea that he was lying about lying, that somehow he was just trying to be. He was trying to puff himself up, that he's not, that he's some kind of idiot, that he was trying to make himself seem smarter than he actually is, that this whole thing was just that he wasn't speaking his mind, that he was trying to make himself appear more important, and that he was trying to make himself appear like a political genius or something like that. These guys are attacking Gruber in ways that, and this is classic from the left. Jon Stewart does this all the time, where he attacks only so much so that it makes the appearance that it's a real attack. What they're doing is they're just calling Gruber a liar for saying all these comments that are for sure not true. That he was just he was coming off as he was saying all these things just to make himself appear to be smarter than he actually is. Whatever, all of that stuff is nonsense. He was telling the truth. He was coming out and saying things that were actually fact, that he thought that were a part of this process.
Right, and they do the attack their own side, and I'm putting air quotes around it.
We heard those air
You've
quotes.
heard the air
Leslie.
quotes, right?
We heard those air quotes.
And it was Elijah Cummings today going, oh, you're stupid. He said stupid. He called Gruber stupid about 12,000 times, and that might have been hyperbolic, but maybe. But he called him stupid just so that when it comes to day 2 of the story, the day 2 reaction from the left, and it's from Soros, and they'll have their talking points memos out there of, well, we agreed with you, and it's time to move on. This is how they put an end to the story. They will acknowledge that Gruber was stupid. They will acknowledge that he spoke inartfully or was glib, and we've acknowledged that, and it's time to move on. Are you still beating that old dead horse? Because we're told that they've covered it.
It's not going to work.
I hope not.
Trey Gowdy cornered him badly and just called him out and basically went at him again and again. By the way, I want to pass a law in Washington that Trey Gowdy is never again allowed to speak until I get popcorn. I mean, it's just, he's too good. He is too good. I mean, if we think about, no, there's no way he's in the mix, but if we think about somebody we'd really love to see in the debates in 2016, he leads the way. He really does.
Oh my God, would he be the most awesome press secretary?
Oh my gosh, he is. He is vicious. But what he was doing is, because he forced Gruber to keep going back to the glib, and it was embarrassing. Gruber kept falling back on this prepared, lawyered up. It was a glib, regrettable, whatever phrasing that I used, and so Gowdy just said, "Oh, just glib." So it just came out there again and again and again. And he kept repeating one quote after another quote after another quote after another quote, and he said, "Sir, which ones of these did you not mean? Because they were glib."
Oh man!
What did you? And, I'm paraphrasing here, but what did you not mean? Which ones did you not mean? Where were you not being serious? And then finally, when Gowdy was done, the chairman of the thing, I forget his name, from California,
Daryl Issa.
Issa jumps in and says, "I'd like to ask one quick question. These settings where you said all these glib comments or whatever he says, did you receive any disagreement from the people there saying, this is, disagreeing with your view of the American people and so forth?" "Well, no, I didn't." And Issa was just like, "Oh, good to know that you were in such agreeable settings."
Right. So you said all these stupid, glib things to people who were paying you, and they didn't disagree with you. Got it.
Oh, no, he's not getting away with it. This is going to grow. It's going to get worse. And the more the left tries to cover this, the less it's going to work. This time it's not going to work. This is too far.
Because we actually have very real people who are continuing to be harmed by the policies that this guy saw to it that we put in place. Unlike Benghazi, that most of us find horrific, Benghazi was far away and it happened to other people and it was over.
Right.
I want to say something real quick about that. The only part I saw of the hearings was a clip of Representative Loomis. It's on the Washington Post, and I'm posting the link here in the chat. But she talks about how her and her husband were on Obamacare, and he went to the doctor. He was about 60, was getting all of his tests done. As he was going through the process, they were on Obamacare and then off, and then it was on, and then it was off, and then it was on and off. And they didn't really ever know if they were going to be covered. And so the husband died of a heart attack one night. He was apparently in good health. After his passing, she was talking to the doctor, saying, was there any signs or anything? He said, there's one test I told him to get that he didn't get. And so she says, Obamacare didn't necessarily kill my husband, but it put us in enough limbo, made us confused enough. He didn't get all the tests he needed. He wasn't sure if it was covered or if we'd have to pay for it. And I mean, you should go and watch her say it. It's really powerful the way she says it. She does a really good job of explaining what happened, why her husband didn't get the test, and just the consequence of this policy that it has had on people and will continue to have on people as this messy rollout has happened.
Well, oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's just going to be devastating, and that too is going to grow and grow and grow. There's one thing I just wish Gowdy or somebody would have said to him, and that is this. Sir, you did not speak as somebody making glib comments to yuck it up with colleagues. You spoke as an insider sharing strategy that you, quote unquote, were glad that it worked because you would rather have this law than not. And you were glad that it worked in capitalizing on, as you call it, the stupidity of the American people. You didn't speak as somebody yucking it up with glib comments, just trying to impress colleagues. You spoke as a strategist, as an inside strategist, and oh yes, as one who visited the White House 19 times and bragged of his one of his face-to-face meetings with our president, where you advised him. And now you say you're not an architect, you're not anything. Really, did they just pay you hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars because of your looks? Is it your charm? Because I want you to know if that's the case, then they really overpaid.
And when they were asking him how much he got paid, he refused to answer those questions. He acted like he didn't know the answer, or he'd have to talk to his lawyer before he could say how much the government had paid him for his expertise. I mean, the whole thing was, we're accustomed to testimony in front of Congress from this crop of people being primarily a stall tactic. That's really all it is. Because now ISA and Gowdy and all of them are going to have to subpoena for all of his records, which is one of the tricks they do to drag things out for a year and 2 years. And then by the time we get the information, it'll be, oh, that's old news. You're still beating that old dead horse, blah, blah, blah. But I just thought the arrogance still of coming to a congressional hearing that you've known, and when asked how much you were paid for these specific contracts, to say you don't have that information with you.
But Ryan hit it dead on. This isn't going away, so all they're doing is dragging it out and bringing it closer to the next election. So amen, Yahoo. Please do that, because thanks to the pain that Obamacare is inflicting, this will all become as fresh as yesterday. So they can go ahead and do that, and it's only going to pay off for us. It's not going to work this time, because they're not burying a story that goes away and is not causing ongoing damage.
Especially not with all of the lies and lying and lies on lies and accusations of lying from the left. Oh, you're being such a liar. Fishy, I know, found a really great article on this.
Right. Well, we've talked about Grubering and making that a verb, and the sort of process that this is not an isolated incident about lying to get an agenda furthered. We've talked about how this is systemic. Well, Victor Davis Hanson has completely outlined this in a piece called, and I'm getting the link for the chat, let's see, where is it? Lying for the Cause. And this was fascinating to me because we've talked about this sort of thing over and over again about liberal tactics, but here is the actual, like, almost a complete laundry list of different scandals that we've seen before. He goes into things like Rigoberta Menchu's made-up memoir, Tawana Brawley, where we first met the Reverend Al Sharpton, Tawana Brawley's supposed rape, to O.J. and that story around him, Dan Rather, the fake but accurate National Guard memo, the Duke lacrosse team, Barack Obama's autobiographic interludes with his composite girlfriends, on and on. Lena Dunham and her rape story that we're not even, able to verify that, and she's thrown that out there. This UVA case, this sort of business up there, the hands up, don't shoot business. He goes on and on about all this. And then he talks about why it's done, and he gives 4 reasons that I thought were just really good that I think people should think about. Psychodrama was the first one. There's less of a tragedy sort of environment that we find ourselves in. These are not Dickensian